Way too many faces in the crowd, but I think that I see you. One too many days got me changing up the way that I need you. Now we're both at a bar, acting like it's not hard, trying to feel something different. Talk to somebody new, kinda wish it was you, kinda numb to the feeling. Now that you're gone, they say time should heal, but it's been too long. Couple months and I can't seem to move on. I can't seem to move on. I can't seem to. I can't seem to. Now that you're gone, I can't seem to. I can't seem to. Laying on my floor, thinking about all the things that we've been through. From 24/7 to pretending like I never met you. No, it's all for the best, cause I know we're a mess every time we're together. Going out of my mind, and I wish I could lie, tell you that it gets better. Now that you're gone, they say time should heal, but it's been too long. Couple months where I can't seem to move on. I can't seem to move on. I can't seem to. I can't seem to. I can't seem to. Now that you're gone, they say time should heal, but it's been too long. Couple months and I can't seem to move on. I can't seem to move on. I can't seem to.
And I've got all the time it seems. I'd rather see you in my dreams. And every chance to dance I'll take, if I can't see you again. And I've got all the time it seems. I'd rather see you in my dreams. And every chance to dance I'll take, if I can't see rather see you in my dreams. And every chance to dance I'll take if I can't see you again. We could be listening for answers, but waiting to be set free. You came across this moment, and I'm so thankful you shared it with me. We could be listening for answers, but waiting to be set free. You came across.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. How are we doing? Are we doing good? Now, I know, I'm going to say this straight off the bat. I know that there might be some confusion because if you are in another part of the world, not in the UK, you might be thinking, Myles, you're on an hour earlier tonight? Yeah, earlier. You're on earlier tonight. Is that right? Because our clocks in the UK went back 1 hour at the weekend. And I know for my American brothers and sisters, your clocks will go backwards on November 6th, which is the upcoming Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, this is like the worst time of year when it comes to live streaming. I remember over 10 years ago when I used to live stream on the good old website stickam.com, and I had my show featured every week, and then there would be the clock change, and then they wouldn't feature my show, and so I was like, oh no, you got to correct it because we're now an hour closer to each other. And then they corrected it, and then the time change happened in America, so we were back to like 8 hours difference between Los Angeles and here. And it was always very confusing. So yeah, right now it's 9 p.m, but it's GMT, so we're not on British summertime anymore. We're on GMT. And you know what? I don't know what you all feel. I just wish they would stop messing around with the clocks. I've been told it's because it's something to do with farmers. It was to do with farming. But, you know, it means the mornings are lighter, but it gets darker sooner in the evenings. And I'd rather have, I mean, this could be another poll, right? What would you rather have? Lighter evenings or lighter mornings? I think lighter evenings. There's nothing worse than finish. I mean, to be honest, when you get to the winter anyway, it doesn't matter if it's an hour difference. By the time you finish work, it's going to be dark anyway. Hi, everyone. So thank you for joining. This is Myles Dyer Live. I host this show this time. After all that, this time that you're on right now, although next week, do you know what? Just subscribe to my YouTube channel, ring the bell, follow me on social media, and I will notify you of when I'm going live. And then after next week, we should all be plain sailing, yeah? Oh, I love this. Darkness all the time, huh? Is this what we want? Is this what we want? Okay, fair enough. Lots of love in the chat. I want to say hi to Callie Timecat. I want to say hi to Mark. I've not been able to take my clock back. I couldn't find the receipt. See, for those of you that are new to this, I actually put this sound of the drum, especially for Mark, who is always telling wonderful jokes. And yes, as Karina says, be kind to that like button, pretty people. Please do hit the like button. But for those of you that are new to this show or don't tune in every time, what is this about? Well, sometimes, I mean, it's just a hangout. It's a nice hangout. The chat is always positive. Some weeks we talk about serious issues. Maybe it's life hacks. Maybe it's about world events. There's plenty of those going on at the moment, right? Maybe mental health and well-being. And then other times we have a bit of fun. Sometimes we do, I'm going to say it, quizzes. We've not done a quiz in a while, but that will be coming back. Like today, we'll be talking about gaming. Although the conversation today is going to be sort of a mix of the two. I mean, gaming is a fun topic, but we're also going to be talking about like what it is to work in the industry. And so, yeah, I'm going to be joined in about 15 minutes time by Mr. Jimmy Bowers, who is from nDreams, the community manager. Absolutely love this guy. We've become good friends. I was going to say through the pandemic. I'm trying to think. It's probably been a year. Actually, maybe it's just over a year now. I mean, some people still say we are in the pandemic. But yeah, he's going to be joining. I mentioned before that I really want to start bringing in guests into this show just to sort of mix it up. And also, you know, it gives me a break from speaking. And I just love getting people's insights. And although the Quest for Global Empathy used to be my platform for conversations, and I do want to bring that back at some point, I think it's nice to have more bite-sized conversations. So, yeah, he's going to be with us in 15 minutes, talking about two main things. Firstly, what it's like working in the gaming industry. And secondly, as you will see in the chat, and if you haven't gone to the poll yet, it's in the chat. It's asking the idea of, is it okay? And when I say is it okay, I mean, like, is it fulfilling to work in a profession, in a job that is closely tied to a hobby? So for the gaming industry, would that work? So that is one of the conversations we're going to have. Hey, Jimmy. I can see Jimmy in the green room. We'll be bringing him in just a little bit. Yeah, so we're going to have lots of conversations about that. But yeah, do hit the like button. Do subscribe if you haven't already. And we've got lots of great stuff planned as we move towards the end of the year. And I mentioned a quiz. We'll have to do a Christmas quiz. It will just have to happen. All right, everyone. A few bits of light news from the week. Always like to do a quick bit of updating. On Friday, it was my band's last ever show. And I know that as I say this, there are going to be some of you in the chat thinking, oh, what? You're in a band? Yep. I've been in a band for 10 years. Unfortunately, it's all come to an end now. And it was an amazing final show. Some of the people that showed up totally took me by surprise. I went out to get food, and coming down the stairs was this guy, and I recognized him. And Simon, and I know Simon's not going to mean anything to you, but he was the bassist in my university band. So from like over 10, 12, 13 years ago. I hadn't seen him since then. And yeah, Kiro, big shout out to you who turned up. Really appreciated seeing you and your friend there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yeah, that was the first band I ever did vocals for. So that was a real coming together. A lot of friends, and it was just a wonderful show. I have a couple of clips I can show you if you want to see. I did a live stream on Saturday with some footage I recorded of the whole show. That's still on my YouTube channel now, but I probably will be taking it off in the next few days because the quality isn't particularly great. But we have something special being made in the works. Hopefully in time for our 10-year anniversary, which I think is on November 22nd or 24th. I should probably know that in time. But yeah, here's two quick clips, right? So the first one is actually a cover we did of Linkin Park's A Place for My Head. So you get to see me doing a bit of rapping. This was it. So yeah, it was an amazing time, and I was wondering how I was going to be on stage because it was a very emotionally charged show. But to be honest, it didn't really sink in, and I think one of the parts of it is we tend to, you know, tour in segments, so we normally play shows months apart. So it feels like we're going to be playing shows in a few months' time. The truth is that's not happening. I kept making jokes that we were going to have such a great time at this show that we'd think, oh, maybe we should do a reunion next year. But unfortunately, it is over for us. And it's been an amazing 10 years. In terms of my musical journey, I'm going to take a few months off to sort of emotionally reset with my relationship with music. But yeah, I'm gonna wait and see in the new year. And yeah, I mean the stage setup was great. I did actually have a proper microphone for this is the camera I used for the live show, but it wasn't working when plugged in. I borrowed it off a friend, so to be honest, that footage was off people in the audience off their phones. Phones these days, the quality is incredible, right? Badger asks, doesn't singing like that. I like that you call it singing. I've always said I can't sing. Does it completely bugger up your vocal cords? What a British question. Without, like, it's really hard to answer this without sounding particularly pretentious, but it's like, if you do it right, it doesn't. But it's the idea that when people scream, like they think they're screaming, that it's all in the throat, but actually, like singing, you actually just let the air flow out from your diaphragm. And I think it's Melissa Cross, professional trained vocalist who does the Zen of Screaming. She teaches a lot of the biggest screamers around the world. She actually says that if you scream properly, it does less damage to your vocal cords than whispering does. And it's the idea that when you whisper, you're actually like closing up your voice. It's sort of like all the tension is down there when you're whispering. Whereas when you scream or you sing, it's about letting the air flow out and letting that do the projections. So, yeah, that was it. Cool. The other thing I'll mention before we bring Jimmy on, who is patiently waiting in the green room, appreciate it, dude, is it was Halloween. Did any of you do anything good for Halloween? I actually spent Halloween inside. I did housework, and then I had an early night. That was fun. However, because Halloween was on Monday, wasn't it? On Sunday, or was it Saturday? What? No, I think it was Sunday. I went to the movies to see Smile. Have any of you seen Smile, or do any of you know about Smile? Now, I was going to put the trailer on screen for this, but as I started watching the trailer again, it freaked me out. I was like, I'm not watching this again. So for those of you that don't know, Smile is a new movie, horror movie, debut for, I can't remember the name of the director, but it's basically about a hospital's, a psychologist who works, a therapist in a hospital for emergencies, who has a patient come in who says she sees people smiling. The patient then suddenly starts smiling and then kills herself. And then it turns out that there is this curse that makes people smile, and it's demonic. And it's pretty intense, and it's got really interesting themes around mental health, which is always a bit of an issue when it comes to horror movies and stuff like that. Had plenty of jumpy moments. And overall, I thought it was a solid movie. Wasn't the best movie I've ever seen, and there were things in it that I thought were like pretty standard horror movie stuff, but it was done well. So yeah, the whole idea freaks me out. Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant concept. The idea, you know, that we smile as a form of comfort and assurance, but often in life people smile to mask what's maybe beneath the smile, and so there is elements of it there. But the other movie I want to see, and hopefully in the next week, because it's only just come out in the UK, it's been out in the US for about a month now, is Barbarians, which I've been told to go in blind. I know it's got who is it who plays it? One of you will help me in a minute. Skarsgård, Bill Skarsgård, is it? I think. Yeah, and it's also directed by, is it Gregors? He was one of the writers from The Whitest Kids You Know, which was an amazing sketch show that was on YouTube that did very well in the early YouTube days, with Trevor Noah, who unfortunately, not Trevor Noah, Trevor Moore, who unfortunately passed away. I was going to say earlier this year, it might have been the year before that. Where does time go anymore? But yeah, so I'm going to be going back to see that. But there's a lot of horror movies I haven't seen yet. Bill Skarsgård, yeah. There's a lot of horror movies that people mention that I haven't seen yet. So the three I can think of is It Follows, which I think people say is quite similar in themes to that. Hereditary, I've not seen. And Insidious. And to be honest, there's a lot of modern horror movies I've still not seen. And there's a lot of horror movies I love that I wouldn't really recommend because they're so messed up. Which is Martyrs. It's a French movie. Don't watch it if you've got a weak stomach. I mean, it's one of these movies that I'm glad I saw it, but I'm also not glad I saw it. It's just really psychologically messed up, but there's something strangely powerful about it. You haven't seen Hereditary, so yeah, I'm gonna have to do an episode of Myles Dyer Live on this, which is my gasp list. And it's, you know, when you mention it could be about books or movies or TV shows or gaming, where you say you haven't watched or engaged in a particular title, and people are like, oh, you've not seen it. There are plenty. I've not seen the new Hellraiser. Please recommend the mess ones. I love them. Well, Martyrs, but don't watch the American remake, which is a very common thing you hear, isn't it, when it comes to remakes. Watch the French original, and don't watch it dubbed. Watch it with subtitles. And yeah, that was definitely one that stayed with me. Funnily enough, I thought Smile was going to be a movie that I was a bit concerned of going there and then coming back home by myself. I mean, there is a scene in it that is, I think, in the trailers where she's lying in bed and over her shoulder is like the door open into the bathroom, and there's a woman standing there that starts screaming. Typical horror movie thing that you don't want to think about, especially like me when I live by myself, that you think about. Do you know the only time I really get freaked out in my house is when Google starts talking to itself in my living room downstairs? Just like in the middle of the night, I'll hear it, and it always freaks me out. And I can imagine, you know, it happening. It's only happened twice now, but I can imagine it happening a third time, where I then, like, you know, chuck it outside, throw it in a trash can, go to bed, and then it starts speaking in the living room again. I mean, that must have been in some kind of horror movie, right? All right, everyone, we're gonna crack on. So I am joined by Jimmy Bowers, who is the community manager of nDreams. I appreciate that not everyone here is familiar with the gaming or VR space, but fortunately Jimmy is, like, his job is all about pitching nDreams and the great work they're doing. But we're going to be talking all about what it's like to work in the gaming industry. But before I bring him on, and just to give him a heads up, after this next clip, Jimmy, you will be on camera. So make sure you're at the ready. Stop doing that. That's inappropriate. Here is a little sizzle reel of nDreams and all the brilliant stuff that they do. Check it out.
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
I was saying I had it set up. I knew I'd messed one thing up. Jimmy, you're here now.
Hello.
How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks for having me, Myles.
No,
when
thank
you're
you.
waiting for that show reel to finish, it's way longer than I remember.
Right, yeah. Well, I like it, man, because sometimes a lot of show reels are 30 seconds, and there is a purpose for that. But you like time to sink in, and especially when you've got a massive range of games, you want people to at least get a sense of what they are, because otherwise it is just an attack on the senses, and you end up going, that looked fun, but what was it? Whereas there, it's like, no, you get a sense of the diversity of the games that you've been working on. Yeah, no, thanks so much for coming on today, man. And I'm really, really excited for this conversation. It's also been like in the works for, I think, just over a month now. I know you and I have both been on vacation.
Yeah.
But also, it's obviously a very big day in the VR world because PlayStation VR 2 has now been, I say announced, I mean, it's been announced in various forms, but now it's completely out there. And for those that don't know, it's been announced that it's coming out on February 22nd next year, 5 days after my birthday. Pre-orders are in 13 days' time on, November 15th. And they've also said what the price is for the new VR headsets. And it's expensive. It is. But we always knew it was going to be expensive. I mean, look, virtual reality technology does so much. And, whenever it's about, the quality of the lenses, it's about creating immersion so that you feel present when you're in these experiences. But the fact that it does cost more than the console you plug it into is quite something. But then again, we live at a time where there's inflation and supply issues. So in some ways, they're probably hedging their bets, hoping that inflation kind of stays at the rate it is between now and February, because a lot can change it in just those 4 months.
Yeah, definitely.
So does that mean now that for nDreams, pretty much you are like, you feel a bit more freer with conversations, or is it still like hush hush when it comes to projects?
Yeah, not a lot has changed for us, to be honest, at the moment with the stuff that we've not announced. I mean, I was on annual leave today, and when I saw this hit, I dropped a message in the work Slack, and I was like, this would happen today.
Right, out of all days, yeah. And that's always the thing when it comes to work, especially in the digital space, is, we always tell ourselves it's important to take time off work, but the thing is that the world goes on, and when there's big things like this, you kind of have to engage in some ways and that. But yeah, and now you're joining me on here, so hopefully this is a nice treat for the end of your day off. Maybe this could be a nice venting opportunity for you. But I would just say, like, before we get into this conversation, for anyone in the chat, if you have a question for Jimmy or myself, or for both of us, just type it in the chat with a Q at the beginning, and then I can favourite it and just keep it saved so that I don't lose them, because I understand the chat is going to be moving pretty quickly. But to kick things off, Jimmy, I mean, for those that, maybe aren't gamers in particular, or, are very new to the world of VR, I mean, VR is still in its infancy, and perhaps don't even know much about nDreams other than the show reel. How would you describe nDreams? Because you are a virtual reality games developer. Like, a lot of games developers, they focus on just flat screen games. nDreams, I believe, has always been VR, but I know that you're fully committed to it now. Is that right?
Yeah, so just turned 16 years.
16?
As of... Yeah, yes. So we're 16 years old. Haven't always been dedicated in VR. We started out... there's a few things that never saw the light of day, but one of the first big things we did was content for PlayStation Home. So quite early, we're in the sort of digital social space and experimenting with that, and I think that's kind of how we spun out to VR. Our CEO is quite passionate about emergent tech and seeing what could be done in like digital social spaces like that. He was like, I think we should give VR a try. But I don't know whether we can claim we were the first dedicated VR studio, but I'm pretty sure we made that switch in about 2013, and have been only doing VR since then. We were one of the first, from what I remember, to get the like Oculus DK1, the dev kit for PSVR 1, and just from there haven't really looked back. And obviously we've got things in the works for PSVR 2 that I can't talk about other than Ghostbusters. But
I mean, the thing about Ghostbusters was, even when it hasn't been announced in that context, it was kind of understood unofficially with the fact it was by Sony Pictures, Entertainment, and it's kind of that thing of like, that would be a bold move from Sony if they're like, no, we're going to let Meta have it, and we'll just wave at it from afar. Yeah, for those that don't know, so a Ghostbusters VR game is coming out next year, and it's just one of the many examples of what I personally love about virtual reality games, which is they're social experiences. Like, you are present in a world, you're surrounded by your friends. And the games that I've always enjoyed so far in virtual reality are the co-op games. So some of you will have seen funny clips of me playing Star Trek Bridge Crew, where, I wasn't the biggest Trekkie fan growing up, but my dad loved it. I used to watch shows with him, and I used to love the movies and that. But in this VR game, 4 of you and your friends, are different roles on the Star Trek Enterprise. One of you steers the ship, one is the captain giving the orders, one is doing the hull and, repairs and stuff. And as you talk, your mouth moves, and it's like the immersion of just the absurdity of like controlling this ship it just has so many laugh out loud moments. And even regardless of what the tone is of the Ghostbusters game, even if you have games that are incredibly serious, it still has those moments that make you laugh because of the fact that you're not just playing on a flat screen at the site, which still brings joy to people, but the fact that you're in it, it makes it feel a lot more personal. So
there's really not enough like proper cooperative multiplayer games either in VR.
Which
like
always surprised
somehow
me.
a really untapped market.
And it always blew my mind because one of my first experiences of virtual reality was Arizona Sunshine. My brother showed me. He had the HTC Vive, and then obviously that had multiplayer, and I played, and it's all right. I mean, I enjoyed it. It just felt limited. I was like, why have not more people leaned into this? I then think of Killing Floor Incursion. Again, it's just 2-player, but I'm like, again, like as a game, it's not probably one of my favorites, but it's one of my favorites to play with friends. Zenith more recently, like an MMORPG. 50 of you can be on a map going round together, like exploring virtual worlds together. And then I even think in terms of sport, Racket Fury, which I never thought would be a favorite VR game of mine, but during the summer, table tennis. My living room, I wouldn't be able to put a table tennis table there. And yet, because of the VR space, technically I only needed enough room to be moving side to side. And I was playing multiplayer. And I was playing with people around the world, some who were speaking different languages. The only time I understood them was when they were really angry at me for getting a point, or they were cheering when they beat me at something. But like those aspects of VR, as you say, it's like that needs to be leaned into it more. And so yeah, I'd be curious for you to talk a bit more about the sort of the philosophy around having co-op multiplayer experiences, but also what it's like to be in a company that has committed to VR, because that's a bold thing to do, and it actually shows you, for those that may still be doubting it, that it's a platform that is grounded in demand and energy for everything that's coming around the corner. Because there's some people that go, oh, it's just a fad. I can say after many years of playing VR, it's not a fad. And if you've got nDreams now doing great IPs like with Ghostbusters, it just makes me more excited for the future.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it was quite, like you say, quite a brave move that early on to go, no, we just do VR now. Like, we'll see how it goes. But I know for us, like, it was more of a case of the promise of VR and what it could actually deliver in terms of immersion, presence, empathy as well, especially once we get into like more narrative experiences that are sort of on parity with flat screen. I mean, I tried it for the first time in about 2017. It was VRVoid VR, who are quite big in the US. They do location-based VR.
I'm always trying to remember the name of that company. It's Void.
Yeah,
and so
Void.
Location-based VR is where they create like physical parts of the world, don't they? So you put the headset on, and I think you did something similar on your away day recently.
So we worked with Ubisoft and Zero Latency, which is another location-based VR company, to do Far Cry VR. So it was a game we made, and then they have it in their VR arcades around the world.
That's amazing. And so, yeah, describe a bit more location-based VR.
Yeah, so it's more they're shorter experiences. So you like buy a ticket for a 30 to 40 minute experience, but they're in like either warehouses or like enclosed spaces within like shopping centers and things, where it's not a game that you'd play on your headset at home. It's you're physically walking. There's no like thumbsticks. You're physically walking around a physical space, and there's sometimes interactable elements like switches on the wall, which reskinned with the headset, so they look like. I did a Star Wars one, and it was like control panels that actually look like you're on the Death Star, and you just like press red button, and it was
that
actually
the one
tactile.
that was in London in Westfields?
Yes.
Or my brother went to it and had a great time. I still haven't done one yet, so I need to make sure I do it.
Yeah, it's a great gateway into VR. Like, if you're not sure whether the tech's for you, like, it's quite a small barrier to entry in terms of you don't have to buy a headset. It's probably like £30 to £40. Give it a go.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part, I think, of the battle when it comes to virtual reality, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
a big investment, and it's why I'm quite excited for this generation coming up with the new PlayStation VR and the new Meta Quests and all those headsets, because I think we've got to a point of borderline like critical mass now where people have gone round their friends who've owned them and gone, I love this. And I'd like to think there's a lot of people, not just friends of mine, but people that have maybe played on PlayStation VR and gone, okay, I haven't got this. I'll probably buy the next one when it comes out. Yeah. Although then again, saying that, a lot of people that bought PlayStation 5, I think it was like 40% when it first came out, were people that had never owned a PlayStation console before because of the pandemic. So there was a massive uptake of new people. But then to get them to splash out another 500 quid, I mean, again, because of the pandemic, people might have budget allocation a bit differently now, where they've gone out less generally. I mean, when I hear about people going out every night drinking, I'm just like, how do people afford it? You know, but that might change the dynamics as well. And actually, on what you were just we were just talking about there, I do have this clip that I know you've seen before, and I'm going to show for the room, and it's of my dad playing one of your games, which was Fracked.
I love that clip.
Yeah, which I did live stream on here once, which is, I mean, I'm going to say it's kind of, well, there's skiing in it, but it's, you know, it's an action-based first-person shooter with an awesome story, a lot of traversal. As I'm saying it, I feel really embarrassed because I know that you have the tagline of it describing it way better than me. But this was the opening bit with my dad experiencing the skiing. My mum and dad took me skiing when I was younger, so they loved it. They never had to be chased by an avalanche though, and this is what it looked like. Oh, you got an avalanche behind you. You need to go as fast as you can. It's just the reactions, isn't it, when you see people... Like, people always think that VR is an isolating experience. I think it's one of the most social. Like, there's nothing I love more than having friends come over and I'll sit on the side and watch them play.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, with some of our games, like, with my parents, my mum is definitely not a gamer. Like, she might have played the Super Nintendo back in the day when my dad had one. But other than that, like, nothing. But I put her in Shooty Fruity and she swore like a sailor but really enjoyed it.
I think that's when people usually swear most. I mean, I rarely swear, but when I'm gaming, people are very shocked at the language that comes out my mouth. It's probably why I don't live stream that much. Especially in horror games. Especially in horror games, my goodness.
I'm not brave enough for horror games, by and large.
No. What's the scariest horror game you've played in VR?
On VR, probably not a lot of horror, to be honest. I was watching Victoria play out. It was my wife. She was playing Outlast.
Is that a mod or is it actually official? Like, I mean,
no, she was playing flat screen. And
I see.
I was like, oh, I fancy having a go at this. Yeah, even just like flat screen, I was like, I actually don't want to walk down this hallway.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game I thought about would be good in VR. Funnily enough, I'm actually better at flat screen horror games now because I've played VR. Because now when I play horror games, I'm like, on flat screen, I'm like, oh yeah, it's in that box in the corner of the room. It's like ring fenced out. That's my safety, is the TV set. Whereas in VR, you know, there's no covering your eyes. I'm not looking forward to having to review a lot of horror games for PSVR without parole because with the PSVR 2, the sort of broadcast system on it's going to make it a lot easier to have you on screen, which is stuff I've been yearning for. But yeah, I'm not good when it comes to VR horror. I love it, but I also hate it, and I get super. And actually, my imagination makes things worse than it is. I know the best thing you can do in horror games is just keep moving, because then you're going to quickly come across whatever it's going to be. Whereas me, I stand around. In Resident Evil 7, I spent on a live stream like 10 minutes in the laundry room, kept going to the door, pushing it open and running back and seeing if I could see through it. And I'm just like hyping up in my head all the horrible things it could be, which is anxiety 101.
Making it worse.
Yeah. So how did you end up working for nDreams? I mean, you and I have spoken a bit before because I did inquire about what it is to work in the gaming industry, but you didn't work in the gaming industry before. I mean, you'd worked, doing writing and things like that, but it was your first job in the gaming industry. So how did that come about, and what was your experience of jumping on board with that?
Yeah, so kind of a convoluted journey, to be honest. Like when I first left high school, there wasn't really any guidance on getting into games or even getting into tech. There was just literally nothing. The kind of careers advice you got was the standard local shops or learn a trade as a safety net. So that's basically what I did for about 6 years. I did an apprenticeship and learned to be a vehicle technician, worked for Ford for about 6 years, and hated every day. But at least I had something to fall back on, I guess. But it got to a certain point where I was like, I really want to start pursuing something I'm actually passionate about now. So didn't really have the funds to just not work and go to uni and reskill. So I just started a part-time course and got an undergraduate's in creative writing. And sort of from there started to explore a little more in terms of like, never really thought games industry was attainable, to be honest. It always felt like it was something that it's a nice pipe dream to have, but that doesn't happen to people like me. So I started exploring like games journalism after I got a few sort of speculative pieces together and had like a really kit bashed like personal website where I could just point to and go, I've got some writing samples if you'd like to have a look. Got a few regular positions off the back of that, writing for people like Jewel Shockers and some indie publications as well. And yeah, sort of from there managed to work my way in from like the very fringes of the games industry, like writing, reviewing, doing a little bit of editorial here and there, but then managed to get a job at a games industry recruiter. So they worked alongside the studios hiring, like their hiring function, because most studios of a decent size have their own internal recruiters, but generally the really specialized roles are quite hard to recruit for. So there's like external industry recruiters that work in tandem with studios. So I started working with one of those as their like content person. So like podcasts, doing like studio spotlights, helping our clients get a little bit better understanding of who these studios were and why they should be applying, what their culture's like, what they can expect on like the first week, the first month, that kind of thing. And then, from there, heard about the nDreams job because they were one of our clients. And I was like, might be a conflict of interest, but I'm going to send an application their way. And I was lucky enough that nDreams are really up on, even though I didn't have the experience, they could see from the stuff I'd been doing. So like writing editorials, community managing on a smaller scale. They could see the sort of transferable skills where with a little bit of like in-role training, I could do the job. They're quite keen on like hiring for potential, not particularly like you don't have to have like, I've been a community manager for 4 years, I'm looking for my next move. It's if they can train you up in the job and upskill you, they will do, which thank God they did.
It's amazing, man. And like everything I see from nDreams on whether it's LinkedIn and other social media is it seems like a company that really cares for their people. And there'll be many people that say, cynically, like, all companies like to do this. But I think we live in a day and age now where if companies were championing those kind of things on social media and the employees didn't think it, you would kind of definitely get that sense. Not because they would necessarily badmouth it, but they wouldn't really be, amplifying that message and, hearing everything that you speak about with them. Even with the cost of living crisis, I think they recently committed to in increasing the salaries to support the staff with it. I mean,
yeah, they did. Yeah, it was separate from like we generally get an annual pay review that you get as part of your appraisal, but it was kind of like, okay, the UK is a bit of a hellscape at the moment with cost of living and bills. Here's everyone sort of got a flat £1,000 raise on top of their salary, which was separate from their like appraisal review, just to help with that. Because our finance team did a lot of investigation, and it was like government support packages aren't going to help.
Right. That's absolutely incredible. And so how would you, now you're on the inside of the gaming industry, like what were your, we all have misconceptions. I mean, like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be based on negative things. It could be pleasant surprises as well. But I guess what has surprised you now working in the gaming industry, being on that side of things?
I had quite high expectations because I didn't go in entirely blind, and even though I didn't really see it as something attainable for me, like my uncle worked at quite a big game studio when I was growing up. But I think the thing that made it so that it wasn't really attainable in my eyes was he went through quite a bad. They had layoffs, as studios do, during difficult periods, and it was kind of like bird bridge kind of experience. He was like, you don't want to work in games, they won't look after you. And then it kind of like soured that dream sort of aspiration for me. And I was like,
there's a lot of that in the news at the moment
Yeah.
about, crunch. People have been really pushed up against it, especially with like devs and stuff like that. So there is a lot of scrutiny about the culture. And to be honest, it's not just in gaming, it's in a lot of companies and stuff like that. So
yeah. I've lost my trail of thought.
You were talking about that the impression had been soured about the fact that they don't that they laid a lot of people off. Where was it your uncle worked?
So actually getting into games, I think the biggest thing for me where it kind of challenged my expectation was that, like in any other job I've had, you kind of agree on the best approach or the best plan, and you work to that and see it and basically see how it goes. And then there's kind of like a post-mortem of, right, how do we think that performed, or etc. There's always a pretty solid plan that you all agree to, and that is the case in games. And there is always post-mortems. What could we have done better? What do the players want, etc. But I think it's the fluidity of like timelines and just how plans change constantly. Like, you've got to be quite fluid and quite adaptable to even like the smallest changes. Like, who would have known today that we'd have got all this news about PlayStation VR 2? Like, obviously we know things that aren't particularly public, but like we don't get told everything, because that's how you stop leaks from happening.
Yeah. I mean, even when they keep things just internally, leaks sometimes happen. So they have to just be very, very tight-lipped on all things. That's really, really cool. And so this kind of gets to the other thing that I wanted us to talk about today, and I'm going to close the poll in a moment. If you haven't answered the question in the poll, YouTube chat, please do now before I close it. It was asking you, would you work a job that is related to one of your hobbies? Yes, I'd be extra passionate. Nah, I like to keep work separate. Or depends. I always have to put a safe answer in there for people that are a bit unsure. But the reason I bring this up is the answer might just simply be like, yeah, you should work in things that you're passionate about, and I do in some ways. But I do think context matters, and I'll give an example. Yeah. So I have a friend who is a presenter for PlayStation Access, Rob Pearson. Right. He hasn't explicitly told me this, but I get the real sense of the work he does. Is like, as a gamer, the idea of you get to review all the latest games is amazing. But when you do like PlayStation Access or a big console show where you're reviewing all the latest games, you have to like, and you hear this from Greg on Kind of Funny Games. You have to complete the game as quick as you can before the release, so you don't get to immerse yourself at a more fair pace. And also, a lot of the times, you're not going to have time to play all the different games. And so there were sometimes I'd be talking about Rob, and he's like, I think only recently he's just played the original God of War in its entirety. But I know when it first came out, he had the story spoilt for him because they had to make content about God of War. And so that's an example of doing something that's closely related with your hobby in that context could be seen as a negative. Look, he loves his job, and there's a lot of good things, but things like that make me think, I don't know if I'd like that actually, because I do like gaming as a gamer. I worry that if I did work in that kind of area, that maybe it would sour, something that's quite separate from work. But what are your thoughts on that when it comes to being a gamer and working in the gaming industry?
Yeah, it is a difficult one and can be a slippery slope if it ties so closely to your hobbies like it does for me, to be honest. So I think if I was a case study, I wouldn't want anyone to do what I do. Like,
I love this.
nDreams are great at work-life balance, and you've got like 10 level up days that you can choose to basically take time off work, learn a new skill, just investigate what you're passionate in, and whether that's something that can help your job directly or whether it's like a new skill like, I don't know, video editing or something. But I'm terrible at like a work-life split because I just can't turn off. I've got like work Slack channels and company emails on my phone, constantly on social media, on my own personal channels and the brand accounts, just in case I miss something.
Yeah. And I understand it, because as a community manager, you have to be there in the community. Because again, if something like this happens today, you can't be like, sorry, not there. It's like, well, you could do that, but it would have a knock on what your responsibility is.
Yeah, I think if you're in comms or a community manager specifically, I mean, there's people might have differing experiences, but I think when you're in like an enthusiast section of the industry, like VR, I think you've kind of got to be like properly embedded within the community, not just present, but like knowing latest news, discussion points, general sentiment, or even just gossip. I think if it wasn't also something I was passionate about or a hobby, I think I'd feel quite disconnected from like just the conversations and find it quite hard to manage.
That's so true. And then so that's the argument on the other of like, if you're going to do something like that, it's got to be a hobby, because you're going to have to live and breathe it most of the time. So it may as well be something that you have an interest when you are logging off for the day. Well, not fully logging off, but the issue around burnout is something to talk about on this weekly show quite a lot, because it's something that I have often had issues with. I mean, going to Romania a couple of weeks ago was my first time abroad in about 5 years, and my first proper vacation in a couple. And it's because when I normally take time off work, it's to do band stuff, which, it is time off. I enjoy the band, but also it's not switching off. It's doing another kind of work, but because you enjoy it, you don't treat it like work. And that's where burnout can kick in, because regardless of what you mentally feel about it, like overtly, which is, I'm enjoying this, your body is still having to endure, the process of like stress and attention and stuff like that. So it can be quite a difficult balance. So what would your advice be to people that do want to get into the gaming industry? And I asked this as someone who did come to you with this question once, and I have to say, Jimmy is one of the most nicest, generous people I've ever known when it comes to advice. Like, you were incredibly generous with your time. I ended up not going into the gaming industry, which made me feel kind of terrible. Like, at first I was like, all this. But things happen for a reason, and actually a lot of what you told me did help me with my approach with where I am now in cybersecurity and stuff. And fortunately, I work in a company which also has good values with its people, and I always talk about jobs in sort of 3 tiers of fortune. You're fortunate enough to have a job, obviously in this day and age. Then there's fortunate enough to have a job that you enjoy. That's always a really good thing. And then the third tier is fortunate enough to have a job that you enjoy and with great people. And if you work with great people, because I've worked in jobs in the past that I wouldn't normally like, but the people were great and I loved it. And on the flip side, I've worked in jobs where I would like it, but the people weren't great, and it made my life hell, because you spend a third of your life with these people. So sorry, with that digression, I just wanted to ask about what is your tips for people that are maybe interested about the gaming industry. Like, what do you think are the top things people should think about?
Yeah, well, I think at the moment, like, I know historically games has got, it seems on the outside to have quite a high barrier to entry. Like, generally, well, historically, if you didn't have a degree, then you were going to really struggle. But I know that's changing quite a lot. There's a lot more internships. There's a lot more graduate and junior programs. There's a lot more studios like nDreams willing to upskill people if they've got transferable skills. So I would say, like, even just because you haven't done like a game specific course at university, like I haven't either. So that's not a prerequisite anymore. Obviously, if you're looking to be a game programmer or a level designer, having those degrees helps. Of course, it does. But if you've got a strong portfolio, I think that's something that'll weigh heavily more if you can show that you understand it technically and can do the work, rather than just ticking a box. But I think if you're looking at getting into comms specifically, which is obviously my background, I found it really useful, like having aspirational targets and following people. Like I culled my Twitter following quite aggressively. It's like, do I really need to follow this celebrity? Like, what is it adding to my timeline? And actually started following like aspirational targets in the industry who I wanted to either emulate or learn from. And I found that kind of had an additional benefit of they generally reshare or post jobs in their departments from their friends in other comms departments in other studios when those vacancies go live. And that is basically how I found my job. Because although nDreams were a client at the time, I actually found it from my line manager who was at nDreams. She's moved on now. She moved to Sumo. Kerry actually shared the internal vacancy in her team and said, "Oh, we're looking for a community manager." And I was like, "I know Kerry," and that's how I found out about the job and applied via Twitter. But I think actually putting the work in to have personal development in yourself,
That's a great point.
rather than just writing it off.
Yes, that's such a great point. Because with the internet these days, the opportunities for self-development haven't ever been greater. You don't necessarily have to fork out money for an education of a certain degree. You know, there are courses online. And it, you know, it's not to say therefore it's just easy to do. It takes a lot of hard work, and it's about being at the right place at the right time. When I was job hunting in the lead up to where I am now, there was about 50 jobs I applied for, a lot in the gaming industry, and also in education and stuff. And you just got to keep at it, and it can be really difficult. But I like that idea about emulating what you see in the community around you. You can learn a lot just from having open mind and open ears and eyes to what other people are doing. So absolutely.
And I think I wouldn't get disheartened either. Like if you put yourself out there, apply for these jobs and get a rejection first time, third time, I think throughout the course of about a year and a half, 2 years, I had about 7 or 8 interviews with different studios. About 6 of those were for community manager positions. Didn't get any of them. About 2 weeks before I got offered the position at nDreams, which is coincidentally the one I wanted the most, I was told that because I didn't have previous experience, I should probably give up looking. And that was from a fairly senior recruiter at another studio. They were quite dismissive. And I was like, never felt lower. Thanks for that. But kept at it. And because I'd had about 6 interviews for community manager positions, by the 6th time when I came to interview at nDreams, I kind of knew the kind of questions they were asking me. So I had that muscle memory of this is the way I want to answer it this time because I didn't do great last time.
Yeah, I actually remember having an interview with Ninja Theory for it was I think it was a social media manager, and I think I got 2 or 3 stages in. One of the things was you had to do a deck of what you're going to do with their social media, and I spent hours on it. And I look back now cringing at the interview process because I actually came in over analysing it. Because I know one of the first things they wanted me to do was to go through my deck, which they'd already seen, and I whizzed through it way too quickly where it probably sounded like I was nervous, but I was doing it because I was like, they've already read this, they don't need me to go through it again, which was like a no-no straight away. But that's, and that was my first interview in the gaming industry. So as you say, if I knew for the next time, and I did. And so it's kind of like, you got to treat job interviews as a sort of, as training. it will prep you for future ones. And actually, something I've always said, and I think it's because of my very strange background with YouTube and being a content sort of development manager in various forms. 90% of the jobs I've ever had were not ones that I actually applied for. I got approached for, and there's a lot of jobs I've applied for that I've never got, and that's just how it's worked out for me. Funnily enough, I think I'm allowed to say this, the company that I work for now at CyberSafe, the job I've got is not the one I went for. I went for a content development manager role, but it was in product and it was written, and I did the written test and stuff like that, and it went good. Then they delayed getting back to me, and they said, "Oh, we're now developing our marketing team. Your expertise in video and that," which I was talking about a lot in the interview. They were like, "You're better form, for this," and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Like, they when you apply for these things, sometimes new opportunities come that weren't actually directly in front of you, and so just by getting your name out there, you never know what conversations are being had and what opportunities could come. So it's kind of my ethos in life generally of keep your head up high, because if you're looking down at your feet, you'll miss any opportunity that comes by you. But it's not to say that the journey can't be difficult. And dude, just so hyped that you are in nDreams. And actually talking about all the stuff in the background, I've got, it's just next to Sonic the Hedgehog is my fracked drinks thing. You can't, it's just, I need to basically sort this out so it's more flat, because this is all cut off at the moment. But dude, your fracked goodie bag is one of the best things ever. Like, I actually held it up in work meetings when we're talking about our own customer sort of goodie bags and that, and I was like, nDreams have nailed it. Jimmy has nailed it. And actually this, I think it was the CEO of our company or someone senior, he was there, was going, "Myles, are you working for them? Are they paying you?" Because they were like, "You're plugging nDreams so much." I was like, no, I just mean they've nailed this. Because there's a lot of talk at the moment about how there's a lot of merch that gets given out where people don't use it because they've got 100 of these before. Like, I use your fracked bag when I go traveling for a weekend because it's the perfect size. Because I have a bag that's either too small or one that's too big. It's like, no, this is the perfect weekend bag. So, yeah, good one, Jimmy. And now you're probably working on merch bags for Ghostbusters, right?
Can't say a thing.
Can't say. Oh, okay.
Although, like, there is not much merch in like the VR space from VR studios. Like, there needs to be a lot more of that.
That's a good point, actually.
It's not on parity with flat screen at all. Like, you'll get a t-shirt or maybe a standee every now and again. Like, one of the best things I've seen is the quill from Polyarc, which I wish I had, but I don't.
Well, some in the chat are saying they're wearing their fracked stuff at the moment, so that's good to know.
Twitcher.
Yeah, Jimmy, I appreciate that we're sort of running into time, but we do have some questions that come in. So you cool for us to go through these?
Oh, yeah, totally fine.
Some of them I'm going to skip because they're going to be dreadful. I don't know. I haven't looked at them yet, but let's have a look. I mean, one of them here, to be honest, the fact that they've misspelt this question is gonna save you from having to answer this, because they said, "Will there be a Frank 2?" But you haven't made Frank 1 yet, so I guess not. No, sorry about that. All right, okay, there we go. He's asked another question about fracked. Or see, this is not me, like, because I'm not being a punchy investigative reporter. You might say I should hold the powerful to account and give him some hardball questions. He's already said he can't talk about stuff that's not been announced, and we did talk about this beforehand, and it's totally understandable. Mojo asked, based on our conversation earlier, do you think virtual reality would be able to help people with anxiety?
I think so. One of the, I know the Without Parole community quite like to poke fun at Perfect, which, fair enough, it's a very, very old game at this point. And one of the nicest stories I've had from the community is someone that had gone through a car accident and they had quite bad like physical therapy to get through. And generally, I think they went on holiday once or twice a year with their significant other. And they were like, can't do that this year. Obviously, can't get on a plane. Like, mobility is severely limited. And they just had a little bit of a break in Perfect. And it was like, it was just enough escapism that I needed just to get me through that day. And I was like, that's kind of amazing.
That is.
So I think VR definitely has the potential to impact, like, have that emotional connection, give you a bit of empathy. So yeah, I don't see why not.
I can think of all the countless VR experiences that have increased my anxiety, and so it's kind of like if it can push emotions that way up the scale, there's no reason why. And there are many experiences I've had on VR that have been very soothing. I think that the immersion of it is a great opportunity for making experiences that can help people in various ways. So it's very exciting indeed.
I think it helps as well with if you've got specific like anxieties or potentially phobias. I'm blanking on the name of the dev, and it is flat screen, but the devs for Grounded, like for arachnophobia, because it's basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and you're in a garden, so spiders are like as big as a house, but they've got sliders or in their accessibility settings where you can make them more blob-like / cartoony. So for people that have that phobia, they can still play sort of unimpeded.
That is true. I have heard about that actually. I probably would use that mode for sure. What would you say are your 3 top tips for building great communities in the gaming space?
Oh, good one.
That is a really good one, I know. Like your top 3. And he's like, I can only think of 2.
Yeah.
Just because it's 10 o'clock at night. Wing this one at the end.
I'd probably say being invested in what your community is passionate about. There's probably nothing worse than it being just a one-way conversation. Like, hey, we're X Studio. Here's our latest news. We'll see you the next time we've got some more news. Actually having a back and forth and sort of growing that community, no matter how small to begin with, making your players, your community feel listened to. Because it's quite a pet peeve of mine when it's just like, we'll talk to you when we've got an announcement. Outside of that, we know you're there.
That's like most conversations, isn't it? Like, oh yeah, you just talk to me when you want something, and a big part of community building is giving value, and that's not just when you've got a product to sell.
No, because I'm keen with that. With influencer management falls under my role as well, and I'd hate for anyone to go, oh, Jim is in my inbox again. He wants something.
Right.
So I'd probably say making sure that you've got a dialogue that's not just one way is really probably one of the most important things. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to hit 3 without some prep.
Well, Karina, who asked the question, said 1 or 2 is just fine. So you've now passed. You've now passed. And actually, Liam in the chat said, based on what we were saying earlier, Sea of Thieves supposedly has a water phobia setting. It doesn't let you go under the water. I've not played Sea of Thieves, but that's a game that I'd love to play in VR. Is oh my god, Subnautica. Even though I'd hate it because I have is it thalassophobia, like the deep water. Yeah. I mean, I get anxious playing on flat screen. The idea of being that in VR would be something else. Yeah. No,
we went to Cornwall recently on a little break, and I will not go in the sea. I'm not about it.
My feeling about this, dude, is that there's a reason we evolved out of the ocean. It's not to go back into it. Like this, the ocean is a scary place. Without Parole don't actually live stream in VR yet. That is true. Although we always talked about like doing a rec room show or something like that.
I did that with Virtual Strangers. I did one of their on location episodes. That was quite fun, actually.
It is super cool. And I'm actually really excited to see how VR improves now with like eye tracking, eye retina tracking on PSVR 2. For those that don't know, it's actually going to detect where your eyes are looking. And there was an example with Firewall 0 Hour, which is a first-person like SWAT team or military shooter. And in one of the trailers, there's a bit where you bring up the weapon wheel, where you select what weapon you want, and you literally look at the one you want to select. Like, a part of me is like, very that cool. Is so unnecessary. But I'm also like, that is the coolest thing in the world. But like
until you accidentally select fists.
Right, yeah, exactly. Like I was actually looking, an enemy came out, and so I looked over there, and then I selected that one instead. Yeah. Especially if it's like you look at it but then you still got to press a button to select it, unless it says then you blink at the one you want. I don't know. But the point is that the the social elements. I mean, there's a lot of games I've played on PlayStation VR where just the mouths moving when people talk is a great feature. Just having hand gestures and being present with people is remarkable. So no worries. People are jumping ship now because they've got PlayStation VR without Pro. Oh yeah, because we're an hour closer. This is what I was saying. So normally there's an hour until their show starts, but because we're now an hour closer, they'll be talking about PSVR 2 right now. I'm just having a last. I know he's normally in it. To be honest, from what I heard from him today, he was completely. I think he was trying to avoid a meltdown with the amount of content because he was like, "What are we going to talk on today's show?" Like as you were saying earlier, like such big news today. And actually, just to quickly show people what has actually been announced today, although they'll be talking about it now. Oh, cool! I've got us both on screen for this. Yay! I was at least some of it's working, but yeah, PlayStation VR 2 launches in February, and this is what the box is going to be, and it's going to come with the headset, 2 controllers. Because when I got PlayStation VR, I went to every Argos to try and find the Move controllers, and I think I had to get them imported in the end, and they were so expensive for what they were. And yeah, so it comes with the controllers, but it doesn't come with a game. So you can get the Horizon Call of the Mountain, but this one will be £569.99. So I actually had saved £500. Obviously, I've got to add to it now, but I thought it was going to come at £499 just underneath. But again, because of inflation, and then obviously you got this charging station, which looks really cool, but that's another £40. So yeah, I mean, it's just it's going to be expensive, but it's going to be worth it. I mean, I'm so excited, and there's going to be so many games at launch, and I was
way off. I was way off with my prediction. I was like, before the consoles went up, I was like,
oh yeah,
I assume 34999 just because I can't see a peripheral. Granted, a very cool peripheral, and I will be buying it regardless.
Yes.
I can't see it being more than the digital version of the console.
But it
is.
Oh no, but that was my thinking. I was like, because when they were talking about on PSVR without Pro, they're talking about in dollars, and they were like, it's going to be under 400, and I went. They were saying it could be like $300 or $350. I was like, the way you got to think about it is whatever it is in dollars, there's a knock-on effect on what it's going to be in British pounds, and I can't see it being below £300. So I was like, £350, yeah, and then like $399 possibly. My end guess was I can't remember exactly. I think I said it was going to be $449. I think it was, or $339 and then $450. But yeah, the fact it's over £500, and especially at a time when they want people to be jumping into this. I feel like what they're doing is they know the people that are going to buy this have got PSVR ones. They're already they're going to pay the price, and then once it's out and they've done that initial launch, they can then knock down the price and get the next wave of people to buy it, which is a business decision, and I respect it, even though I know it's going to frustrate me when I think, but then you're paying a premium tax on the guarantee that you're going to get to play it at launch. So
and I think I saw someone looked into the original PlayStation, because obviously the original PlayStation VR one, like you said, was quite piecemeal. You got the headset, no controller.
That was it.
I don't think even some of the sets didn't even come with a camera, I think.
Wow,
so if you bought it all individually, and then shifted it to today's money and inflation, it would be about the same. I think the actual PlayStation VR 2 comes in slightly cheaper. So you are paying for next gen tech.
That's it, and the tech is incredible. And to be honest, it was how I felt about the PlayStation 5. Was I said if there were no new games at launch for PS5, just the quality of life improvements on existing games, I was really excited for. Now I know that there's not guarantees that all PSVR games are going to get a PSVR 2 upgrade, and I'm not going to push you for any confirmations now. But I just think that there are going to be a lot that do get that treatment, hopefully, and even if it's not right away at launch, because everyone's going to be focusing on the new games, There are a lot of games that I think Pistol Whip actually today was confirmed it's going to get a PSVR 2 update.
Yeah.
Beat Saber, there's nothing on it yet. I assume it is. I mean, it would be just, I can't imagine them not withdrawing back from being one of the best selling games on there. So, and like No Man's Sky, I've stayed away from that for about a couple of years now because I'm going to wait until it gets the next gen version, and that's clearly a game that was always going to get the PSVR 2 treatment. So there's plenty of stuff to play, and obviously I'm really excited for Resident Evil Village, although also terrified, and also for Call of the Mountain. I think it's going to be a great first.
Yeah, I can't wait to play Call of the Mountain. Looks great.
And as Karina says, gaming is not a cheap hobby. And that's it. It's a luxury hobby. Like, we forget. And when you, again, think of the technology like eye tracking and stuff like that. And again, when it's lenses, I don't know the technicalities of like how thin the lenses have to be. But the research that goes into that of recreating a sense of immersion in a real space, it's like, it's phenomenal tech. And if we really want to see this progress, we have to vote for it with our wallets, really. And you know, that's why we talk about it so much, because we love this industry and that. So yeah. Dr. Dance says all hobbies are not cheap. Dancing's cheap. Can't it be cheap? Can't you just dance by yourself? Yeah, I don't know. Right. Anyway, Jimmy, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I've not done this guest sort of format on this for a very long time, and I've enjoyed this very much, and it went pretty smoothly, except I forgot to put you on the guest slot. It was the one thing I needed to do. So when it switched, but I fixed it very, very quickly.
Oh yeah.
But
no one noticed.
No one noticed, other than the fact I just said it. Like, yeah, I should have just shut up about it. Yeah. Listen, the way we end our show every week is we play this word game. I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's called Words on Stream. And we always try and get to level 20, and it's a game everyone can play in the chat. You're welcome to stick around and play it with us if you're up for it.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool. But before we do, something I forgot to put on screen, and I'm going to put it over my face now, is the result of the poll, which was, would you work a job that is related to one of your hobbies? Yes, I'd be extra passionate, 70%. 24% said depends, and I like to keep work separate, 4%. So, yeah, pretty overwhelmingly in favour of yes, I'd be extra passionate. And to be honest, I think I am more in that camp. The depends. The more I've had conversations with people like yourself, I'm like, yeah, actually, I would enjoy working in the gaming industry. But you got to make sure you're not just working in the gaming industry because it's the gaming industry. You need to make sure it's a job you also enjoy doing.
Yeah, I think it depends on
that trap.
Yeah, I think it depends on your personality type as well. Like, obviously, it depends separation between work and work-life balance. But yeah, if you just don't want to take work home with you, and like it is at 5 o'clock, I will not think about work again till tomorrow. Maybe that doesn't align with like careers you're passionate about, I assume. But yeah.
Yeah. By the way, a lot of love for you in the chat, Jimmy. Jimmy it's been fantastic having you on the stream. Thank you for taking the time to spending the time with us. Thanks for all the answers and the whole interview, Jimmy. There was a lot of questions about asking him to confirm games, and it was the one thing. Like literally, they've just been confirming stuff on Kind of Funny Games last night about Ghostbusters. It's like, that's the real deal. I'm not expecting some exclusive. I mean, I'm happy for you to drop an exclusive now, but.
No, I think the only thing I can say, because I think there's a little bit of confusion, like when we say we're working on like games for PSVR 2 as well as Quest, but as when we say we're working on games for PSVR 2, there's some assumption that Ghostbusters is it. It's not it. Like,
okay.
It will be coming to PlayStation VR 2, but there is other projects as well that are
I'm glad that was
very exciting.
I'm glad the announcement was Ghostbusters isn't coming to PSVR. No, I wanted some good news. But no, that's really, really, really cool to hear. And to be honest, when it comes to even PlayStation 5, there are so many like big companies and new IPs that have just not been announced yet. Like, yeah, because I think I think there's at least like 13 like massive IPs that have still not been announced, which is why I thought a showcase was going to be happening. I mean, it still could happen. It seems unlikely now, but maybe my feeling is it could be done maybe early next year, like maybe after they get the PSVR 2 out. But there's definitely a lot of big PSVR 2 titles I'd like to see, like Destiny 2 or Fortnite or Grand Theft Auto Online. I feel there's one of them coming. But to be honest, Ghostbusters, having like an IP as big as that, and that's what makes me really excited for this generation, is we're seeing great companies like nDreams that have really shown what they can do with their own IPs and their own platforms, basically building the trust with these big IPs to say, yeah, let's work together. We've got the IP, you've got the skills with building these virtual worlds, and together we can make incredible stuff. And dude, I'm so excited for Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. Like, now we're moving into PlayStation VR 2 and like next gen VR with Quest 3 eventually, etc. I think more flat screen studios are looking at VR as a way to expand their IP, and they obviously at the moment don't have the skill set to deliver a VR first game, and they're looking at studios like nDreams and our peers and going like, obviously you're proven in this space, what could you do with X?
That's it. That's exactly it. Oh man, it's super exciting. Where can people check you out? Plug your stuff. Twitter.
Yeah, best place Twitter. Yeah, at Jimmy S Bowers. I'm pretty much
what?
that handle everywhere, to be honest.
I'm actually putting your website in the chat because it has all your links in the top right corner as well, actually. So yeah, everyone please check Jimmy out. Super positive force, as you can tell from today. Always a pleasure hanging out with you, Jimmy. And we will hang out for an in-person drink at some point. We will make this happen.
Definitely. I mean, we missed each other at EGX by about 3 hours, but
yes. Oh man. Yeah. I couldn't. That came around so quickly. I was like, oh, I forgot this was on. But anyway, everyone, I am just setting up now. Words on stream. So you've never seen this game before, Jimmy?
I've seen it in your other streams. I can't tell you I know how to play or that I'll be any good.
That's fine, because even if your word games aren't your forte, just like throwing stuff at the wall can inspire people to get the right word. Like there's some rounds where I don't get any points at all. So yeah, this should be interesting. Right. Cool. I'm just logging into it now, and let's see if I've fixed this right. I actually did some pre-production before this show because last week was a disaster. I was like flicking slides and it was like playing videos from like the week before, and I was like, oh, I should have actually prepared this show. Terrible me. Word game, here we go. Here we go, this works good. Right, we're both on screen, this is good. And then if I bring it here, great. And then you type your guesses in the YouTube chat, Jimmy. So I don't know if you've got the YouTube chat up in front of you. Great.
Yeah.
I will put some background music on it in a moment. But yeah, I will get some music on now. Let's do this, everyone. So yeah, for those of you that have never played this before, basically you've got to type in the chat any words you can see with the letters on screen. But once you guess one right, as you will see there, Dyer by Mojo, you get locked out until the timer goes past the padlock, and then you get brought back into the game again. So it basically means you want to get as many guesses right early on. Driver, well done, Callie. I guess there's going to be a lot of words where you add an ED at the end, maybe, or ER. So rider, oh, you've done that. Diver, Dyer. I don't think it's going to be one. The thing about this game is you always just make up words. Oh no, Dyer was one. There you go.
Oh.
I love that. Yeah. Just, I think this could be a word. Let's think about the English language. I can pop out the chat for me. This is better. Three more, and they're in alphabetical order. So there's one that begins with D, potentially, maybe R, R-E something. VRVoid. Well done. Right, there's 2 more 4 letters. Right, well done. Well, that means we get 3 stars because we all got them, and that means we skip 3 levels. Now, the record for us is level 19. We've never hit level 20, and I think for now, like 30, 40 episodes, we've been dying to hit that level 20. So, could today be it?
I'll be honest, Myles, I'm not helping you at all.
Klingon, isn't there? Inkling, Linkin. Wow, look at you, Mark and Seago. Very, very impressed. Big points there. Oh, we've had our first sex bot in the chat. It means we've made it. Timed them out. I like it with timed them out. Like, yeah, after 300 seconds, sex bot, you can come back and tell us if you've learnt your ways. I have a feeling the answer's going to be no.
Think about what you've done.
Yeah, think about what you've done. One left. It's going to begin with I guess. Lignin. I don't actually know what that is. I don't. Mark, you said that. What does it mean? Don't look online. Go on, tell us what the definition is. I want to know. What does lignin mean? I'm having a look now. Is a class of complex organic polymers that form key structural materials in the support tissues of most plants. If you said that in the chat, I would ban you. It's a polymer. There we go. Okay. All right. I'll let you have that. Right, moving on. We go up another 3 levels. I'm very impressed. Obviously. Yeah. Oh, this song is from Synth Riders. I love it.
No, yeah.
Riot. I mean, Riot nail it in, obviously, on Synth Riders, but also on Beat Saber with,
Yeah.
What's it called? Oh, man. What's the Riot song? Oh my god, I'm so annoyed. I'm not even guessing.
I don't remember.
Overkill. That was it. Karina's like, shh. Stop talking, Myles. Right, there's a fake letter in this one. And, oh, Joanna got plop. Good one. So, approval, which means the letter that shouldn't be used is F. F is the fake letter, everyone. Do not
Just as I used F.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, people will keep using it. Hey, Leah. My friend Leah's just joined. End of the show, but still an important time to come in because you can help us get to victory. Oh man, this is a difficult one. Flavor? Oh no, is it O-U-R? Oh no, F! See, I was using F! Oh my goodness. Yeah, why am I using F? I know. We got 1 star, so we got 1 level. But that's still progress. It's good. And Mark is about to hit the 100 mark. No pun intended. Wow, this looks like it's going to be a tough one. Right, wouldn't let me use shot, so one of them is a fake one. Chat? Nosh. Great first word. Right, it wouldn't let me use chat or shots, so I think T is the fake letter. Cans, yeah. Yeah, T is the fake letter. Don't use T. Right. Right, we are 3 points away from getting through this. There's one that's going to be... Oh, man, this is so difficult. When there's, like, fewer, like, answers, it's so much more brutal. Nachos! Very good, Mark. It was all that food talk earlier in the chat I saw. Which letter is fake? T. Don't use T. Don't use T. Oh, man. I'm typing words and seeing they're already in the chat.
I've done that a few times.
Yeah. Oh, Nacho, of course. If someone does something with a plural, just take the S off. Chaos. Is there KO? Is KO a word? No. Kosh, you got it right at the last. Well done, everyone. 3. So we get to level 11. Right, we're moving up. We're moving up. Leah, you are confused. I can explain. So basically, you see all the letters at the top. We have to guess all of the words that you can make. So you type it in the chat, all your guesses. But to make it a bit more complicated, one of the letters is fake, which means you can't use it, which we now know because someone's got knowing, which means Q. You're not going to use Q anyway because there's no U. So, yeah, use any of the letters. And once you've guessed one correctly, you get locked out until the timer goes past the padlock, and then you get brought back in the game. And we've got to guess them all. They're all in alphabetical order as well. Owning, wow, look at all this. See, I've just finished explaining it, and now I've come back and there's no words left for me to guess. Right, there's one that begins with W, and the second letter is going to be between I and O. So... We know. Mark, I don't know what language you're using today, but it must be Old English or something, because I don't know any of these words. Right, well done, everyone. Look, Mark, 148. Dude, are you going to hit the 200 mark today? My goodness. Right, now there is a fake letter and there is a hidden letter. Just to make it... Oh, dude, this game gets so brutal.
Oh, if I didn't feel useless before.
Oh, dude, once you get to level 19, it then doesn't show you the correct answers. It just shows... Oh, dude, it gets so ridiculous. Right. Frag. Fire. I wonder if... Okay, grief is allowed. I mean, could it be an S? Can you do griefs? Giraffe. Mark, what are you playing at, man? How you got this? So the fake... The hidden letter is... an A. A, yeah. And then that means the fake one is L. Okay. So do not use L, but use A. Wow, I am not doing well this round. I got fire, and that was it. Right.
Even though you said don't use L, I couldn't help myself. Every suggestion.
That's it, right? That is it. All right, we've got 1 point now. Means we go up level 50. Oh, look at Mark, 193. Have you done 200 points before, Mark? That is amazing. Yeah, way to go, everyone, as Mojo says. Right, here we go. The thing is, the difficulty of this is going to ramp up so steeply now over the next 5 levels. So if we get 3 stars and we skip them, it gets even steeper. Oh, I'm going to do teal, my favourite colour. Yeah. Oh, no, I bought cattle, but... Tool. Oh man, as soon as we get the long one. Oh, this is not good. It's going to reveal him in a minute, and then we're all going to have to absolutely pile on. Oh, man. Acolyte. R. Use R, don't use C. Alert. That's going to be one. Quick, everyone. Now, forever hold his Tooler. Can we get a couple more in? Here we go. Can we get a few more in? Unlucky. Unlucky. Oh, man. This game is so brutal because you can like be at a certain pace and then just one set of letters just totally throws you off. Well done, everyone. Just going to show you, look, Mark, you didn't quite hit the 200. But thank you to everyone. Yeah, that game is always brutal.
I don't think I got one word, I'll be honest.
But you would have inspired... Oh, whoops. I just added an extra guest, which was so unnecessary. Let me see. There we go. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, it was your first time playing. And, like, the thing is, even when you don't guess words right, someone else might see it. And they're like, oh, I could use that. So just, like, throwing stuff is always worth it. But anyway, Jimmy, on that note, I want to say a huge thank you for taking the time to hang out with me tonight.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for asking.
No worries. And any final words before we sign off?
I'd probably just say, just to retread all ground, if you are interested in a career in games, it is attainable. I'm doing it. So you can definitely do it.
That's amazing. And I do I love your background, dude.
Thank you.
You got
Yeah,
I like all the Tabby McTat books.
Yeah, I didn't really like frame it very well. Like all the game stuff is behind my head, but like all my daughter's books are there.
Well, framing is stuff that because already on this one, I'm gonna have to punch it in. I need the camera to be a bit lower because I don't need this door in shot as well. To be honest, I think I might have just messed it up, and I don't know. I'm gonna have to work this out for another show. But yeah, it is really difficult, isn't it, when it comes to framing and stuff, because you have to work with what you've got space wise. I mean, a lot of people said, "Oh, you don't need that door there." I'm like, that's literally the cupboard. I can't remove it, and because those two doors, I can't really have this facing any other way. It's tricky. The joys of building home studios, right?
Yeah, literally. We've got quite a small 2-bedroom bungalow, so this is just in the corner of a living room.
Right, is it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
I would have never known. I'd have never known. I actually remember I had someone from British Gas call me for an interview, like talking about like getting a new boiler and stuff. And he was there, sat in his suit and everything, looked very presentable, and he had a British Gas banner behind him. He was like, "I'm in the living room." Like, it was during the pandemic. He's like, "I'm just in the living room," and it looked like he was in a British Gas office. And I'm like, it's both amazing, but I'm also like, oh, that's tough. Whereas at least with the stuff that we do, we get to actually have our personality sort of involved in it. And yeah, it's cool. And dude, like just looking behind you at all the different sort of IPs and that is... nDreams is a cool company.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm very thankful they gave me the chance, to be honest. And something we didn't even touch on, just the fact that the pandemic made flexi remote and remote work more of a thing. Like, I'm based in the north, could not afford to live down south. The studio's in Hampshire. Like, I go down a couple of times a month. If they hadn't have opened it up to be more flexible, and the pandemic kind of proved that does work, you can trust people to work from home, then yeah, I wouldn't have been able to accept the job.
That's so true. And it's the company I am is remote first, and it's it was a bit awkward at first. Like the freedom was a bit intimidating.
Yeah,
because traditional leadership is all about being told what to do and being micromanaged, whereas actually now the modern day way of leadership is being, as we define it at our company, being a leader of leaders and empowering people, giving people the opportunity to do what they're good at. And if you have the right structures in place, it means that we get to do wonderful things like that we do. Cool. Well, on that note, a huge thanks, Jimmy. I will let you log off now as I sign this off, but we'll be in touch and we will definitely go for a drink soon.
Yeah, definitely. No worries. Thanks for having
Cheers,
me again.
Jimmy.
See you later.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Much love to Jimmy. It was really cool doing a interview format for this. It's the first time of like doing it. I've done a couple of interview pieces, but having it as a part of the show structure, I enjoyed this. I learned a lot from it. So there are a few things that I could probably tighten up on from my end. But yeah, Jimmy is amazing. So much love for Jimmy in the chat. And keep that love going, because I'm going to end the show now. Head on over to PSVR Without Parole, where they're talking about all things PSVR 2. And I'm actually going to go to bed because I am so low energy at the moment, which, to be honest, I'm surprised I've done this show because my energy levels have been so low the last couple of weeks. But I love you all, and I will see you on Friday's show on PSVR Without Parole. Much love, and adios. Till next time. Bye-bye.
I saw you on the road. I was chasing sunsets all alone. The darkness
Hey everyone, huge thank you for tuning in. I honestly, the last 2 weeks, my energy levels have been through the floor. I've been trying to sleep a lot. I probably should go out and get some more sunshine as much as possible. But yeah, I was like this evening really worried because I was like, oh, Jimmy's coming on and it's going to be a really good show. And I just hope I feel good. But actually having done a lot of prep for this with the production, like the broadcast stuff has been great. And funnily enough, over in the UK at the moment are some of the Ecam team. For those that don't know, the broadcast system I use is Ecam. And they're here in the UK, so they're in London at the moment. So tomorrow after work, I'm going to try and head into the city and meet up with them and just give them lots of thanks because they have a great system. It means I can create this interactive show with all the comments and stuff like that. It always works really, really smoothly. But yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of your week as well. I'm going to chill for a little bit, or maybe I should go straight to bed. Yeah, I'll do that. All right, everyone. Have a good one. I'll catch you next time. Much love. Love.